Or someone else? That's it. Burt Lancaster was a giant in the movie business. He was talented, but he also got into ugly fights with some of Hollywood's biggest stars. These people hurt him in more ways than one. They shook Burt's personal life to its core because they were involved with other people romantically, and being attacked in public over politics and the craft, they hurt Burt's soul in ways that could never fully heal. But the question is, who did Burt Lancaster hate the most, and did that hate have anything to do with a scary secret? He promised to carry to the grave Kirk Douglas, who gets in the way of love for three people. There's no doubt that Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas's friendship was more than just a fight between two Hollywood stars. Both guys were very proud and very angry, and they were ready to fight to the death. They were more than just rivals on TV. In real life, they were foes because of their jobs, love, and pride. That would never really close. It all started with Deborah Kerr, the beautiful star who made millions of people fall in love and who set off a power battle between these two men. Burt Lancaster drew Deborah in with his cool and the charm of a thinking man, while Kirk Douglas showed off his hot pursuit. However, this wasn't just a flirting match, was it? Things quickly got worse on the 1953 set of From Here to Eternity, where love and work got mixed up and arguments broke out. As soon as the cameras started rolling, the mood on set became so tense that it was hard to imagine. In an instant, there was a fight between Burt and Kirk. A member of the team remembered that during a break, they fought like they hadn't stopped for too long, swearing and pushing each other like they had nothing to lose. In a conversation with Peter Biskind in 1961, a close friend of Burt said that this wasn't the first time. For a long time, Burt didn't like Kirk. Everyone in the room knows that Kirk can't stand not being the most important person there. Burt is different, though. He doesn't like how Kirk always makes himself the center of attention. Burt had had enough one night after the opening when Deborah was talking to Kirk. The Los Angeles Times said that Burt lunged at Kirk in the middle of the party, which led to a fight in front of many people. Because things got too crazy, they were both kicked out and even arrested by police for making noise. They looked bad because Deborah Kerr had to bail them out. But Burt didn't feel bad about what he did. He was filled with uncontrolled hate for the man he saw as his sworn enemy. It happened more than once. When they ran into each other at events, they looked like two rabid dogs, their eyes filled with anger. This wasn't like any other fight. Always going on, the fight was getting worse. Their looks, words, and body language all showed deep disdain. In 1960, at the Academy Awards, there was another strange story. Kirk beat Burt, and Burt looked at him like Kirk had just taken something very valuable. Even though it was only a few seconds, everyone could see that their dislike had gone beyond professional competition. One night, Kirk started bragging about his recent accomplishments in a bar. Burt finally lost his temper. He got up and yelled at Kirk, "You're just a loud mouth." People around them were shocked that they were always bragging about things they didn't earn. Not for Burt, though. It was just one scene in a never-ending story of hate. Their relationship was never a friendship, even though they did well together sometimes. It was a fight that would not end and a wound that would not heal. In the 1960s, when both men were having trouble with their jobs, their problems got worse. All the fights never stopped. So could their fight ever end? Do not close the book yet. There is going to be another star soon. John Wayne. Someone Burt Lancaster really couldn't stand. How angry would Burt get with John Wayne if they got into a fight? John Wayne criticizing each other's politics in public. During the best years of Hollywood, Burt Lancaster and John Wayne were more than just big stars. They represented two very different political groups. John Wayne was the hero of westerns and a sign of traditional tough values. Burt Lancaster, on the other hand, was a symbol of liberal, progressive values. Their fight wasn't just between friends. It was a cruel political fight and one of Hollywood's worst wounds. The hot-button issues of the 1960s pushed them apart, and their relationship started to fall apart. John Wayne seemed angry about the civil rights movement, the fight against the war, and the fight for personal freedoms, all of which were supported by Burt, who was strongly on the right, especially when the Vietnam War was going on. The fight for power didn't end in Washington, D.C. It spread to the film business and turned Hollywood into a I call battleground. When John Wayne attacked Burt in a special interview for Life magazine in 19, things really went off the rails, and many more famous people who backed the liberal cause. It was said by Wayne Blunt that they are just rebels who want to destroy the principles that this country was founded on. They only want to get people to join their progressive movement. Some people were very mean to Wayne Lancaster, and it made their friendship so bad that they almost hated each other. Burt Lancaster was never going to give in to conservative attacks, so he fired back right away. A few months later, Burt didn't just answer, he got to the heart of the matter in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter. Burt made it clear that Hollywood isn't a place to hold on to old ideas. Society needs us to move it forward, not make fun of people who are trying to make the world a better place. Wayne got a bucket of ice water thrown in his face, and it didn't just hurt their relationship. It drew Hollywood deeper into a war that would never end. It wasn't just public talks where people fought. A person in Hollywood said that during a 1968 project where they worked together, they got into a fight over a script, which stopped the whole production. Burt said that Wayne was a damn conservative who only knew how to support wars that had no point. The person said it was so tense that no one could breathe. In 1970, at the Academy Awards, their hate grew even stronger. When Wayne won a big prize, Burt did something terrible. He turned away from Wayne and wouldn't shake his hand. There was silence in the room, and everyone knew that this split could not be fixed. A person who knew Burt well said that he hated Wayne and everything he stood for. Even though they worked on some of the same projects over the next few years, their friendship stayed tense. Not only did they differ on politics, but Burt also had a lot of dislike for Wayne. Their fight was about more than just politics. Values that couldn't be agreed upon led to the war. Hollywood has always had deep wounds, even with all of its bright lights, shadows, and secrets behind the scenes. The Lancaster-Wayne fight was one of the worst. But these kinds of problems weren't just between them. One more famous person, Marlon Brando, often spoke out against Burt. The fight would be even worse this time. There was Marlon Brando, a life of excess, and Burt Lancaster's mean comments. One of Hollywood's greats, Marlon Brando, was known for living an unrestrained life and not following any rules. He lived a life that most people wouldn't even dare to imagine. He was carefree and didn't have to follow the rules set by society in Hollywood. But Burt Lancaster, who was a man of faith who saw his work as a religion, saw Marlon as more than just a rebel. Everything that Burt held dear was destroyed by him. Burt got angry with Brando after reading an embarrassing interview with him in the New York Times in 1962. In it, Brando called him a star Hollywood p. Wrapped up like a grinning doll. After that, Burt couldn't sit still. An old friend said that Burt slammed down the paper and said, "That guy's out of line," when he heard it. He thinks that people will like him even though he lives a dangerous life. Burt's success wasn't based on luck, but on hard work and morals, so he couldn't stand Brando's disrespect. When Burt's name came up in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter in 1963, he couldn't hide his anger. Marlon is a wild child who doesn't follow the rules. He doesn't understand what hard work really means, Burt, said, eyes locked straight into the camera as if facing Brando himself. Has he ever thought about people like me who sacrifice for the work for the art, gnome? Brando just lives in indulgence. That wasn't just a public jab. It kicked off a long, quiet war between the two, and it had only just begun. In 1964, when Marlon Brando starred in The Godfather, one of the towering films of his career, Burt couldn't hold back. Herbert Marshall of Variety recorded Burt's remarks. "I don't understand why Hollywood exalts someone like Brando. He isn't just undisciplined, he's the ugly face of the movie industry. He's got nothing but rebellion, and that contributes nothing to art." When Brando heard this, he didn't sit still either. According to industry insiders, he laughed and told friends, "Burt will never get me. He's just a war strapped into Hollywood's armor." That only enraged Burt further. The feud intensified in 1965, when they appeared together on a live television interview. On Hollywood Today, Burt was asked about Brando's lifestyle. He didn't hesitate. "Marlon is a symbol of destruction. He's not an artist. He's a self-deluded man, lost in fantasies about himself. If Hollywood wants to honor people like that, I want no part of it." The comments shocked viewers and triggered a fierce reaction throughout the industry. Colleagues took notice. Burt never feared speaking his mind, even if it set all of Hollywood buzzing. But with Brando, the rebellion was just a mask for professional shortcomings, recalled one friend. In the end, Burt and Marlon never reconciled. Their invisible war only deepened as Burt's hatred for Brando's lack of discipline grew. To Burt, it wasn't freedom. It was the destruction of everything cinema needed. Their feud wasn't just a fight between two stars. It was a stark display of clashing values in an ambition-fueled Hollywood. This story is only one part of Burt Lancaster's life crowded with complicated relationships. And next we'll witness another, no less intense showdown with a strong-willed, rebellious leading lady, Joan Crawford, who would force Burt into a battle just as grueling and full of surprises. Joan Crawford pulling despicable tricks on him backstage. Hollywood, where the brightest stars draw not only adoring eyes, but also envy and shadowy power plays behind the curtains. Burt Lancaster, proud of his professionalism and respect for colleagues, never imagined he'd have to confront a woman like Joan Crawford. Domineering and uncompromising Joan was famous not only for her films, but for her ugly backstage theatrics that left many in the industry weary, and Burt was among her most wounded victims. It began in 1956 when Burt and Joan worked together on Autumn Leaves. Though he knew Joan was difficult and a bit imperious, Burt never expected she'd become a nightmare throughout production. According to a crew member's account in The Hollywood Reporter on day one, Joan demanded a retake simply because she didn't like Burt's performance. Burt pushed. He didn't think the scene needed another take, but Joan wouldn't listen. She went ballistic and threw a chair at the wall. Tensions ran so high, the set had to pause for several minutes. That was just one of countless disruptions. She kept making things hard for Burt, criticizing his wardrobe, nitpicking every detail of his preparation. Joan never let Burt have a chance to shine. She found any excuse to call him out in public, said a close colleague. Never made a scene, but that didn't mean he wasn't humiliated every time she did it. But Joan didn't stop at public jabs. A reliable source from the set said she started plans.